To say this piece of wood is like less than optimal is probably an understatement. Checking out the grain on this thing, you can see some run through right here just in the sun, how it gets dark in one spot and then continues back. That is end grain that is coming through the board. You can see grain lines actually running out right here and almost straight across the limb from here to here. Picks up again and is just really pretty wavy. I'll make sure I'm staying in the camera view here. Real wavy, long curving waves here, a little bit of a knot right here and on down. So understanding we've got a really non-desirable piece of wood to try and make a belly out of. I'm going to pull out all the tricks I know to try and bring this bow to life. This is in fact a piece of ipe. So we know we're dealing with a very compression resistant belly wood. So it can handle compression pretty well. It is 70 inches long. And as I mentioned, it's quite narrow. Measured it one more time. It is 1 1/8 of an inch wide. So very narrow. Even for ipe starting out. Now I don't know how many pounds I can draw out of this thing. It's a good, let's see here, forgot to put a measure on this. It's just under 1/2 inch thick at the grip area. Right. Call it 7/16. And tapering down to very, very narrow or very thin at the tips. I can't even get a really good measure on that. It looks like 3/16 right there. 4/16, you know, 1/4, 3/16. So it tapers down, and it is a gentle, not gentle, but a constant taper. So this was the one I did on the table saw. Very first attempt with this particular jig. So it was the test piece, and figured, what the heck, I got it, it's here, let's make a bow. So we need something that's going to not tax this belly too awful much, right? We're already minus the option of going wide, which, you know, spreads out the strain a little bit better typically on a wooden bow. So compensating with that in length, it's 70 inches long. So 70 inches should give me plenty of length to get a 28-inch draw without taxing this belly to the point of being compromised simply due to its grain. All right, so we are going to try and make that happen. I'm going to give myself a second challenge in that the piece of bamboo that I'm going to back it with is not lined up in the most optimal way possible. So I'm actually going to be between two nodes at the grip area. And when you put your nodes out at your fades, and in this case, this is really just kind of where it's meeting the bending portion of the limb, you tend to put a lot of stress here and here and create that opportunity for compression fractures or crystals. So to compensate for that, and I wrote this in, there's 11 inches between these two nodes. To help compensate for that, I think I'm going to make like a 16-inch power lamb in here. It is going to be a very slight power lamb. Just enough to help round out that grip a little bit, or thicken that grip some, so that it's a little easier to handle, because I'm not going to, at least not yet, my intention is to not glue on a riser on this bow. So my intention is to kind of make it in a quasi-English style longbow. And the reason I say quasi is because we are in fact adding the power lamb, but then I'm going to put some reflex just just a little bit of reflex, and I think I'm going to put it late in the limb. Now, I take that back. I think I'm going to do a reflex through the entirety of the limb here on this. This is 100% experimental, so I want to challenge the wood a little bit and challenge my skills some, but also do it in a manner that's going to give me a very efficient bow should it work out. And depending on how you play out the tips, this is where having very light tips is vitally important to the efficiency of the bow. So that's where I'm going to try and take this build. So really, guys, what I'm going to do from this point is I'm going to cut out the shape of the bamboo to fit the back of this piece of ipe. All I'm going to do is just taper out probably the last 12 inches of this length on the ipe to bring it into alignment along the grip. It's really pretty, it's straight from this perspective, but we'll work out you know, center of grip and center of tips and get a layout on there. There's not much to work with in the first place, so really it's just getting the tips aligned to some degree, tapering it down a little bit, getting a backing put together out of this piece of bamboo, and then getting all our parts put together. So guys, let me get this thing taken care of right quick. All right, we are reduced and we are tapered. Now the taper, I ended up going 16 inches up the limb and just straight tapers off and kind of maneuvering everything to just kind of be rounded out and ready to go here. Let's see, this is probably a little better view. So it's straight through the meat of the bow and then tapered to 1/2 inch tips right now. The backing strip has been worked down, tillered on the sanding, you know, tillered on the belt sander, and hit to a width of just over 0.2 inches through the grip area, but we don't want that to bend any. And then I got down here to 0.17, 0.16 in this first length of working limb. So I'm happy with the thickness on this particular piece. And then of course it's just tillered, man, just tillered to shape, or tapered to a tiller. All right, so those are our parts to start with. I'm going to go ahead and fashion out about a 16-inch power lamb, and I want to draw attention to one other anomaly that we're going to have to deal with here, which is why I designated, yes, one particular side as the belly. This is going to be my backing, or the glue side. Hoping I can find, here we go, here it is. There is a small crack longitudinally in here, but it runs off the edge. You can see it run off the edge right here. It's kind of a little bit of a splinter. See that? So my intention here is to glue the backing onto this surface to negate the existence of that little splinter, and you can see where it's lifted right here. So all kinds of little opportunities arriving with this piece of wood, but reacting in the best ways that I know how. All my little secrets come into work here. All right, so backing is going to cover that splinter in the hopes to just arrest it all together. That is the plan. We have two different ways we could attack it. Hope that we could take it off in the shape of the belly, or get some epoxy working in our favor to just close it up permanently. And that is the option I'm going to go with on this one. So I'll get started on that power lamb next. I have just this awkward piece of hackberry hanging around. It's been used or portioned out. You can even see where it's kind of offset on the cuts that have been taken off of it. So I'm going to true up one surface and then just taper down the tips to a feathered end, and this will be our power lamb. It is actually 18 inches in length. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it down to 16 before I wrap it up. But this will be this will be our power lamb here. So give me a second. I'm just going to work it down on the belt sander and bring it. All right, there it is, all tapered down to feathered edges. You can make that out, hopefully. Might be able to even see in the sun there. Yeah. Tapered pretty thin. All right, that's the last piece of our parts, I guess, for what we're going to use to put this bow together. Here is our dry fit. So you can see the bamboo backing against the ipe belly. The power lamb in here. Here's center line of both the power lamb and the belly. And actually, I think I need to go ahead and go in here and put a mark down. Small problem. And unfortunately, when I laid this out, I didn't necessarily pay as close of attention to this scenario as I probably should have. So this was like the physical end of the bamboo right here. One end was, one or the other, and had to work within the confines of that, because obviously your bamboo can't stop before the end of your bow, and laid it out and ended up with a center point that is not exactly in the center of our middle two nodes, which puts the end of my power lamb in pretty close coincidence with my node. Now that's all laid up on center. So geographical center of the bow here, geographical center of the power lamb here, geographical center of the backing here. Now, the intended design of this particular bow is just a straight long bow. And as I mentioned before, I wasn't necessarily planning on putting in a riser, and so now I'm kind of married to that idea. No riser. Well, not necessarily married to it just yet, but I still don't want to put in a riser. And since we're on a long bow, I'm going to set this up with an asymmetrical limb design and actually move my power lamb down this direction about 1 inch, which will add an inch to here and take an inch from here and get us evened up between these two nodes. And what will happen is this limb right here will be a full 2 inches longer than this limb down here. And since it's such a long bow, being 70 inches tip to tip, I can kind of get away with that. And obviously it will cause a positive tiller to occur just on an evenly bending bow. It situates the grip below center, which is what we want to do anyway. But the bend is going to kind of be evenly distributed from geographical center, and we'll end up with a bend that's longer off of this one limb going on. That's what causes that positive tiller. It's not necessarily a weaker limb versus a stronger limb. It's just more limb residing on one side of the bow. So I am going to relay this out, or lay it out a second time, and scoot everything just a little further down this direction, naming this my bottom limb. So I got it. You can see that the fade outs of the power lamb are almost even on either side of the nodes there. So through design, we're able to kind of compensate for some of our irregularities in the materials. And this is going to be our glue up and basically how we would hold it. So when I'm gripping it, I'm going to have as much power lamb extending below as I do above. So really kind of evening out that bend at the arrow pass. You always want to degrease your parts, and I use acetone in particular, even though everything on the table, save for the Ipe belly, has been milled out today. But with Ipe in particular, I just really feel it's important to degrease it with an acetone so that you get a good glue adhesion. And we're working with epoxy, of course. All right, guys. Time to glue her up. And hopefully everything goes well. But at this point, I'm just going to put a card somewhere in here on the video to go over what I believe to be the 9 most important steps to getting a proper glue up on your bow. And it is important to get a good glue up. And a lot of little details, right down to the can of beer that I just opened up. So this is what the glue up looks like. Just bound all the parts together. Heavily concentrated wraps right here at the ends of the fades to ensure that we've got a really good glue line. And then gave just reflex to the stave itself. And you can see when you look down the length there that it is taking on that reverse tiller. And that's the whole idea behind like a Perry reflex glue up, is that we're going to induce that reflex in the glue line. Now, it may appear as though we're asking it to take on an awful lot of reflex here, but as soon as that comes out of the mold, we'll give up about half of that reflex when it settles out. Not in the tillering process, immediately upon removing from the mold. So we're looking at about probably 2.5 inches of reflex when all said and done here. We're going to let this bow cure overnight, and we will get started on the tillering process and potentially have a shooting bow tomorrow. Thanks for joining me this week, guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. Could open up a lot of opportunities with substandard pieces of wood. We will see.